People living along the Rwanda-DRC border have noted that the way locals from both sides of the border assisted each other during the eruption of the Nyiragongo Volcano on Saturday evening is an indication of the good relations that exist between Rwandans and Congolese. Serge Nore has more on the details.
Devota Mawazo was among those to flee the eruption of the volcano, and she was heavily pregnant. Giving birth to a girl, she decided to name Umutoni, a Kinyarwanda name, because she was born on the Rwandan side of the valley between the two countries.
The eruption began just as my contractions started, and we all started to run for the border. And just as we descended into the valley, I went into labor. I had no choice but to give birth there. Soon, locals came to my aid and brought me here. I'm grateful for the assistance I was given, and God bless them for what they did.
More than 600 other Congolese nationals ended up in Rwanda's Busasamana sector, and they, along with others who popped up in Gisenyi town, say they were received well. The moment people saw the fire and lava, they became scared and picked up what they could and headed for the border. We are very happy with the way our Rwandan neighbors received us. We spent the night in the Rubavu Stadium, but we were properly cared for. The moment we saw smoke rising up from the volcano, we bolted, and when we got here, they put us on buses. We were not victimized in any way, and things went well. They received us well here, and even gave us food. There was ample security with police and military personnel maintaining a presence, so we had security and no problems. Local residents in Rubavu said welcoming and taking care of their Congolese neighbors is something they did because it is part of Rwanda's cultural norms. And Rwanda's Minister of Local Government also visited the area in the morning. The local residents alerted us as soon as the first numbers began to cross into the country, and they were rounded up so as to be protected along with their belongings. Also, the local residents were urged to be vigilant, lest anyone use the refugees as a cover to try and destabilize the security of the country. We are therefore commending the actions of the residents of Busasamana. Experts are warning that preparations must be made moving forward in anticipation of the possibility of other such occurrences. Rwanda may have received 10,000 people, but there is still an issue when it comes to proper preparations for those sort of things. It's obvious that local officials were caught off guard by such a sudden influx of people, and we are fortunate that the volcano suddenly stopped erupting and the Congolese began returning home. Had it continued and more kept coming, things would have gotten complicated. This is an opportunity to assess what would be needed in such a situation. The facilities to receive so many people, ensure that they have clean water. Rubavu district officials say more than 10,000 people are known to have crossed into Rwanda as the Nyiragongo eruption intensified on Saturday night and into the early hours of Sunday morning. The damage caused by this latest eruption is still being tallied, but in 2002, when Nyiragongo last spewed lava, it killed 250 people and destroyed more than 120,000 buildings.
Thank you, Serge, for that report. Now, businesses have continued as usual in Gisenyi after the Nyiragongo volcano stopped erupting. Business people that operate across the border have been assured that both countries are working together to see that nothing is being disrupted. Doria Mutesi continues.
After the volcanic eruption stopped and the sky cleared up, many of the Congo residents that had sought refuge in Gisenyi were seen going back to their own country. This assured some of the business members across Gisenyi that reformed going about their day. As time went on, we kept listening to Radio Rwanda and watching Rwanda television, and we were assured. And by morning, the eruption had stopped, so we also went back to work as usual. There are others who have expressed concern after tremors continued after the volcano stopped spewing lava. The last time it erupted, it wasn't like this. We are feeling tremors and so many people are scared. Hotels in Gisenyi town that had been vacant for days were only too pleased to welcome so many Congolese who had fled to Rwanda, and some have still not returned to their homes. Cross-border traders say they've not been able to cross into Goma because normal activities are yet to resume there. On that note, the Minister for Local Government, Jean-Marie Vianney Gatabazi, dissolved their concerns, saying that both Rwanda and DRC are working together to see how the trade can continue without any challenges. Volcanic eruptions usually create panic among the population, but the geologists are the one that will give us the final word to know if the eruption has completely stopped. Also, the residents have now had a bit of experience with volcanoes and life seems to have gone back to normal. The Western Province Governor, Habitejeko Francois, has called on the public to be hospitable and to maintain security as well as avoid compromising on the COVID-19 prevention measures.
Now, with global petroleum prices rising by 17%, importers are saying that they have accepted to lose 10% of their profits per litre, and the government is spending 29.3 billion Rwandan francs annually so that the burden of the increased transportation costs is not passed on to the general public. Serge Nori has more.
The global rise would have been reflected by a 7% increase in Rwanda's transportation costs, but that did not happen. Diesel currently costs 1,054 Rwandan francs per litre, while petrol is at 1,088 Rwandan francs in Kigali city. If you were to factor in that 7%, diesel would be around 1,090 Rwandan francs per litre and petrol would hit 1,161 Rwandan francs. That would be a significant increase, and it would have started in January when global prices first started rising. The economic impact on the country must also be considered in such a case. Transportation costs in general for goods and people. All of this was considered, and the government decided to forfeit certain revenue so that the general public can be shielded from those effects, and the costs remain as they are. Importers of petroleum products say they have also decided to forfeit 10% of their profits per litre sold, and that this has helped them to retain their customer base. Be it the government or us, none played a role in raising global prices. In business, as prices go up, customers dwindle. So when the government decided to sacrifice some of its revenue to protect the general public, we also decided to forfeit a portion of our profits. We are not happy when prices go up, and this is something we needed to do to continue doing business. Their customers have welcomed the move by the government and the importers, while academicians say it is necessary to closely monitor transportation costs. Take the cost of transporting things from here to Cyangugu or Gisenyi. If it stands at 20,000 Rwandan francs and suddenly goes up, then obviously so will the cost of the goods being transported. The cost of importing raw materials for factories also increases. In such cases, if the government is not careful, the regular person ends up becoming the victim of those price hikes. When the government reduces taxes, the prices do not go up as much, and again, it is the general public that benefits, with the prices of things like sugar and rice remaining the same, thanks to the government intervening. In March, a 30% increase in the price of petroleum products globally resulted in a 10% jump in Rwanda. Had the government and importers done nothing, petrol and diesel prices at the pump would have been significantly affected. With the government losing up to 29.3 billion Rwandan francs annually to keep petroleum prices as stable as possible, the increases in March and April remained at a modest 1.4%. The objective is to keep the increase at no more than 3.5% during this year.
Now, the Rwanda Energy Group Limited estimates that 40% of homes end up And up to 148 cells in Rwanda don't have access to electricity, including some in Kigali city.
In Kabuye Cell, Jabana sector, Buriza village, residents have not been able to access electricity. At night, locals use candles as a source of light, including students that use them to study. It's challenging to us not to have access to electricity, yet we stay in the city where others have electricity. If we are lucky to get the paraffin, we use the small lantern. Buriza residents in Gasabo district say they came together in 2018 and collected money to be able to access the electricity, but in vain. The fact that we are not connected to the electricity grids and yet they are in our fields and the people that stay below us were able to get the electricity is such a disservice to us. Nzaisenga Theonest, the project manager for electricity distribution and access at the Rwanda Energy Group, says that all the sectors in the country have access to electricity apart from the 148 cells remaining across some parts of Kigali. So especially for the city of Kigali, it's expected that by the end of the year, no resident will be without electricity. All the surveys and what's needed has been done. For Chichuchiro and Nyiragongo, it won't go beyond June this year. There are some sectors that have a big population, which means more work is to be done, hence why we think that by December it will be possible for them to have electricity. But we plan to work with everyone so no one is left behind. The people in Jabana too should be patient. They too will get the electricity. According to the Rwanda Energy Group, 60.9% of households in Rwanda have already had access to electricity, and by 2024, every citizen will be having access to electricity as well.
Now, some residents of Nyamagabe district say that non-implementation of all COVID-19 prevention regulations is one of the main causes of the prevalence of the pandemic in that region now. It is while the district administration says that extraordinary efforts are needed to beat the pandemic in Nyamagabe.
Nyamagabe continues to be among the districts with the highest prevalence of the COVID-19 virus in the country, according to daily statistics from the Rwanda Biomedical Center. To some of the residents, this is a shame that the virus continues to be prevalent in their district. It is indeed sad that figures are like this. We never wish that we are the ones with a high prevalence rate for COVID-19 or to hear that someone has succumbed to the virus. It is evident across the streets that some people go without wearing face masks, and there are some bars that are operating only to hide when they see local authorities or journalists coming towards them, with some residents blaming it on their colleagues that have become complacent. There are people who don't respect these guidelines across the streets, as you can see. There are even people in the villages that don't wear face masks at all, saying that they run out of breath. We are concerned with the increase in the number of infections every day. Nyamagabe district officials are saying that some of the leaders became complacent too and actually work with the residents in not adhering to the COVID-19 prevention measures. Mayor Uwamahoro Bonaventure reminds the residents and the leaders that not respecting COVID-19 prevention guidelines is giving power to the pandemic. We should work hand in hand and defeat the pandemic. Residents should hear this and understand it and know that it's their own initiative to protect themselves. Collective effort is needed in fighting this pandemic. Kaduha, Mugano, Gatare, Chibumbwe and Homane sectors are the worst affected. More than 6,000 people in the district have been vaccinated in the first phase.
As part of the BAL's ongoing efforts to support various communities during the pandemic, the BAL has donated 150 educational laptops to the Ministry of Education. Some of the teachers who were selected to receive the laptops attended this Saturday's where a symbolic handover ceremony was held. COVID-19 has had a devastating impact on the education in developing countries, including Rwanda. Now, the ongoing pandemic has demonstrated the importance for education sectors to have robust ICT offerings for effective communication, work, and learning. In response, Rwanda built 22,000 new classrooms and recruited 29,000 new teachers. Now, part of the Ministry of Education's new goal is to equip teachers in the nursery, primary, secondary schools with a laptop, with further prepares teachers to help equip students with the 21st century skills. Now, the Director General of the Rwandan Education Board, Dr. Nelson Mbarushimana, spoke about the importance of teaching, of having teachers having access to computers during these difficult times brought about COVID-19. And also, teachers who received the laptops acknowledged that the computers will make their teaching working much easier and efficient. Now, the laptops were handed over to teachers at the Kigali Arena during the halftime break of the game between Senegal's AS Tunis and Zamalek of Egypt. Now, the game ended 86-62 in favor of Zamalek. Experts in technology, Experts in technology and the Rwanda Investigation Bureau are warning people to be cautious and know how to use their social media platforms, as some hackers get so comfortable hacking their accounts, using them for fraud and theft. Now, they also noted that social media can be productive when properly used. Unidentified individuals hacked into a WhatsApp account of one Niyibizi Juveni, who himself did not know about it. The hackers started asking for money from his WhatsApp groups, pretending to be him. Those who knew the man started asking what had happened.
I realized I was hacked when one of my friends called me in shock, asking me about what I had written in the WhatsApp group. I rushed to check and I was no longer able to access it. People started complaining that I'm bothering them, constantly asking them for money.
The spokesperson of RIB, Dr. Murangira Thierry, explains that due to the functionality of the WhatsApp application, it's easy for one to access another person's WhatsApp account in another phone, hence some are doing it for theft.
There are digital codes which WhatsApp send to the main WhatsApp account, which are required for one to set up a second account. Hence, someone who wants to steal an account uses a technique of asking the owner of the WhatsApp account to send the code back saying it was mistakenly sent to them. So when the owner doesn't become suspicious and instead rushes to give the code, then without knowing, he or she has just given the thief free access to his or her WhatsApp account. Then what the thief does is to look at the people whom the owner frequently speaks to and then starts asking for money by using lines like "send me some little money, I'm in a meeting," or like "help me pay off someone through this number."
Dr. Murangira Thierry wants people to stay aware of the messages they receive because they are tools for fraudsters.
After these frauds go through your messages, it is then easy for them to blackmail your acquaintances in your name, telling them that if they don't give them money, they will expose their secrets. But again, it all comes down to how one uses their social media. One can secure their WhatsApp account just like other applications, which means otherwise they are at risk of being accessed. This is done by setting up a password which normally consists of 6 figures. This makes it hard for the thief to try cracking the passcode because he or she will then be required the original code, which is only known by the owner. It is for this reason that we request people to stay conscious and think twice before replying to a message.
An expert in technology and a lecturer at the University of Rwanda, Dr. Ngenzi Alexandre, says some hackers send links of which, when opened, they are able to gain access to one's WhatsApp account.
ufite telefone yawe ujya kubona ukabona haje nk'ikirinki utazi cyangwa se
For example, you can receive a link from someone indicating that it contains some kinds of news or information, and when you open it, the hacker is then able to access all your data on their central server where they designed the program, and then afterwards, he or she asks you to fill in a code, and when you do so, he or she is able to fully access everything which they use to blackmail you. Fortunately, due to the nature of WhatsApp, information can possibly stay private.
Those convicted of fraud for accessing information of another person are punished by imprisonment of between 1 to 2 years and a fine between 1 to 3 million Rwandan francs. In addition to that, he or she is also prosecuted for identity impersonation, of which when convicted is sentenced to between 3 to 5 years in prison and a fine between 1 million and 3 million. And on behalf of the entire news production team, thank you for your company. I'm Jane Mutoni. Have a pleasant new week.